Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second edition of a Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation webcast. I like to call it. Some call it a webinar. Glad to have all of you with us today. This is going to be a really fun program or show. We have some great guests and really looking forward to this next hour. So on behalf of Tracy Forrest, our president of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, again, I'd like to welcome everybody. Co-hosting and co-moderating with me today will be Cheryl Hardy. She is the COO and Executive Administrator for the Citation Jet Pilots Association, better known as CJP. Cheryl brings over 33 years of experience in the association management business. Prior to these roles, she served as the Vice President of a multi-association management company. Say that fast 5 times, for 28 years. Cheryl is actively involved with aviation and aviation safety as a lead FAST team representative with the FAA and is a member of the General Aviation Awards Program Committee. She was honored as a representative of the year for the National FAA Safety Team during the FAA Administrator Marion Blakey's tenure. So we welcome Cheryl. Cheryl, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Vince. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Very happy to have you. You've done a lot with the scholarship program. Speaking of which, so one of our purposes today is to show some of the things that the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation has been doing as far as some of our initiatives, this initiative being the President's Award for these young aviators to help them with finishing their education and getting started into their careers. This is something that Cheryl and Tracy will tell you a little bit more about the details of it since they've worked on this program for a number of years. But the bottom line is that we want to expand it. We want to grow this along with other initiatives that are going to benefit, you know, our next generation of aviators like the young folks we're going to be talking to today. Yes, I have enough gray hair and white hair on my head to say young folks. So let me tell you a little bit about Tracy. Tracy, we're talking about a guy who utilizes aviation in every way you can imagine, whether it's flying for business, which he does a lot, or providing his aircraft for humanitarian missions, which he also does a lot. So the Veterans Airlift and other humanitarian organizations, he offers his aircraft to transport people in need. And that's a great thing. And yeah, he occasionally uses it for personal trips. Tracy founded and built Winter Park Construction literally from the ground up in 1974. A few years prior to the passing of Bob Hoover, Tracy and Mike Herman got together and with Bob and formed the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation. Tracy, in addition to being one of the founders, also is the president, as I mentioned earlier, and Mike became the chairman. So they both sit on the board along with several other board members. And as aviation does with the most passionate of us aviators, particularly those who have had the privilege of calling Bob a friend, their aviation-centric friendship became part of the catalyst for forming this foundation. The mission of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, our mission, sanctioned by Bob, is to inspire future generations of professional aviators like the ones we have with us today in all aspects of aviation and aerospace. And just for good measure, Tracy does have his ATP and all the certifications that go with that. He has single pilot type ratings in a number of the Cessna Citation business jets. And he has a seaplane rating. I don't even have my seaplane rating yet, so I'm a little jealous of that, Tracy. Oh, the other thing I'm a little jealous of is Tracy's logged time as a pilot in the Ford Tri-Motor. That's got to be pretty cool. So let me go ahead and toss it over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Vince. First of all, I want to say welcome to the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation. We're so glad to have you there.
Thank you.
And I'd love to share a little bit of your background as well, if I may.
I appreciate that.
Well, Vince Vince stepped into the left seat of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation a couple of months ago as its new executive director. Vince began learning to fly at Lambert St. Louis International shortly after getting his driver's license. While his heart was set on becoming a naval aviator, his eyes needing 2020 uncorrected and kept that from happening. So Vince went with his other love, broadcast journalism, for a 27-year broadcast career after making the best of a brief naval career in naval intelligence via the ROTC program. Nevertheless, his passion for all things aviation persisted, and in 2006, when he was given an opportunity to become an advocate for general aviation in the non-for-profit aviation association world, including stints with AOPA, the Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association, which we're all very familiar with, and the National Business and Aviation Association, NBAA. So with that, Vince considers it both an honor and a privilege to be tasked with growing the foundation to a level that can eventually support thousands of young aviation and aerospace professional careers. And for that, we thank you, Vince. We're looking forward to our relationship.
All right. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Well, it's great to be in company with you guys and to be able to share this with others. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our scholarship winners and tell you a little bit about them, which we'll talk in more detail a little further into the program. First, we have Jan Bosch. Did I say that right, Jan?
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't see Jan's name in front of you, Jan, you want to wave your hand and let everybody see who you are. So Jan is a 2014 Embry-Riddle graduate. He is the first recipient of the Presidential Scholarship, and he currently works for Delta Airlines. He's had quite a track getting to Delta, so we'll talk about that a little later. And then we have Anna Robinson.
Hi.
Hi, Anna. So Anna is a 2017 graduate of Embry-Riddle, and she currently is with SkyWest. And we'll tell you a little bit more about her also. We have Otto Maytag. Otto is a senior at Embry-Riddle, and he's at the Prescott campus. So, and actually, Otto, you are from Arizona, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I live in Arizona.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have Brooke Harrington. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, good evening.
Brooke just graduated also from Embry-Riddle, and she is currently working on her CFI. And finally, we have Brandon Baber. Brandon also is a recent graduate, just graduated in June from Embry-Riddle, and he also is working on this CFI. I have to say that Brooke and Brandon, their progress on their CFI has been slowed by the pandemic, but they're anxious to get back in and finish that up. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
This is really great because we're really looking forward to this opportunity to hear what they have to share with us. And they a couple of them are actively working in the industry. A couple of them are about to. So it's a nice cross section of folks to talk to about this, of these recipients of the thing. So I'm going to toss this to Tracy now. And Tracy, you want to tell us a little bit more about the mission and some background on the scholarship program?
All of those of us that do Bob knew the passion he had for life, the passion he had for life, the passion he had for aviation, and the passion he had for the future generation of aviators. If you really wanted to see Bob's smile light up, his eyes light up, is when he was able to sit down and talk to the young kids and encourage them on the future, tell them stories and encourage their training and mentor them. An early initiative that was given to us was to help the future generation of aviators. And that's what we're trying to do. For a lot of you, we've got a couple board members on the call. George Gould's on the call. Jim Kidrick's on the call. But, some of the others, Michelle, it's good to see you with us. Mark Allo, Kathy, Joshua, Jacqueline, April, Albert. We've got a lot of other people on the call who don't realize the efforts and benefits the Hoover Foundation is able to do in Bob's legacy and keeping Bob's memory alive in these aviation students. You know, I know Jan was able to spend some time before Bob's passing with Bob, and the other students have been able to see and feel, get to know Bob by reading his book and learning more about him. But what we've done, we would like the members and the donors of the foundation understand what a great job the students have done, how the money's being used and the benefits are being provided have gone a long way for future generations of aviators. And with Vince, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much. And yes, this is a great thing to be able to talk with you guys. So let me go ahead and hand it over to Cheryl, who will reintroduce Jan and talk a little bit more about Jan's involvement and what he's been doing.
So if I may, Vince, I'd just like to add a little bit more about the Bob Hoover Presidential Scholarship Awards. So this is not something that just kind of haphazardly happened. It was about 2 years in the planning. We started in late 2012, worked through 2013 with a terrific staff from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University putting things in place. We, Tracy and Tom Poveresny, who was on board with CJP at that time, worked diligently to bring the university into the picture. The university was absolutely thrilled and wanted to be on board and pledged their full support to whatever type of scholarship we created with Bob Hoover. We actually had Bob Hoover out to the Daytona campus, and everybody who has had the chance to be with Bob Hoover in person, raise your hand. Excellent, excellent. So we have a couple more here. We have Anna, who had that privilege. Anna, I remember when you had that privilege at the ERAU when he was there for the dinner. So
it was such an honor.
It was indeed, and your joy and exuberance was just overwhelming when you met Bob, and I'll never forget that. Never forget it. Bob loved mentoring students, and he wanted to leave a legacy. So with that, the creation of the Bob Hoover Presidential Scholarship was born. And with a lot of hard work and effort, we finally went into our first year. Our first year, we knew we were going to support one student as our pilot program was kicking off. And that's why Jan is affectionately referred to as number one, because he told me I could never have any other number one than him. So with that, let's go to Jan and talk a little bit about the program. And then I'll give you a little bit more data about the awards that the program has given. So Jan, tell me a little bit about your experience with CJP. You went through the application process, you went through the interview process, and how did all of that go for you? And then where did it lead you?
So I was extremely excited when I first learned about the Bob Hoover Presidential Scholarship, because I had always revered Bob as such an idol and such a hero in the aviation community. So to be able to find out about a scholarship that was named after him and wanted to continue the legacy was something very special. So I immediately applied, eagerly hoping that I would hear something back, and then went through the panel interview with Tracy and Cheryl and quite a few others, some members from Embry-Riddle from the university. And yeah, once all that was done and I was selected as the recipient, it was just an incredible honor, because being the first recipient, it first meant so much to me to be selected for the scholarship. That in and of itself was incredible, but being the first recipient meant a lot more. I felt like I had a responsibility to all my fellow students at the university that would come after me to take full advantage of the opportunities given to me from the scholarship, and to really harness that and show how grateful I was for the scholarship, because I wanted to make sure that the donors felt confident about their donation and that they wanted to help more students after me in the future. So in addition to that, it was also very special because I got to know you, Cheryl, and Tracy very well, going to a lot of incredible meetings and aviation activities and events with you. And it really opened my eyes to the world of business aviation, as well as just the world of flying as a whole. So yeah, it's definitely impacted me a lot. And just first off, I just want to start by saying thank you, you know.
Jan, how did you become interested in flying? How did the bug get to you?
Well, I'm originally from France. I was born in France, but I grew up in Arizona. And so traveling back and forth in the summers to see my grandparents, aunts and uncles and cousins, I was always super excited to go home and see family. And the way that I did that, of course, was by airplane. And I always loved that trip. And I figured, you know, I love traveling, so that would probably be the best way to do it. So ever since I can remember, I've always wanted to be a pilot.
Wow, so it goes way back. So
Yep.
let me go back a little bit on your background, particularly since, you know, one of the questions is about what you've been doing as of late since you graduated from Embry-Riddle. You started flying for a Part 135 Trade Wind Aviation out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, in Pilatus PC-12s. By the way, I really love that airplane. And you did that for a while, and then you went to SkyWest out of LAX, and you flew CRJs, including being qualified to fly out of Aspen or into Aspen. And anybody that's flown into Aspen knows that's quite an honor to get that qualification, because that's a tricky little airport at times. Then you flew for Spirit Airlines in an Airbus 320. That's quite a jump to the Airbus. And then you're now at Delta Airlines flying the 220, which was, it's a little smaller than the 320. So tell us about that. Tell us about your career, starting from, you know, when you left school and when you finished school, and how that progressed.
Well, I really attribute a lot of my career progression to the scholarship itself and the opportunities and really ideas that were sparked from it. A lot of people tend to take the CFI route where they instruct and then they build their time until they go to the regionals. And that's always something that I just figured that was the only path. And then when I was awarded the scholarship and started going to all these events and meeting all these people and talking about how they got into the industry, or you know, there were pilots like Tracy who don't do it professionally for pay, but there were others, and everyone had a story, and everyone had you know, a different avenue of going there. So it really opened my eyes to the different you know, the different ways to get to the end goal. Which at the time for me, I really didn't know what the end goal was. I knew I wanted to fly professionally, but I didn't know if I wanted it to be in the business aviation side or the airline side. And I can also say that had it not been for the scholarship, I wouldn't really have even considered the business aviation side of things or the corporate side, and just kind of would have probably just followed the mold of the airline. So I'm very happy for that opportunity, and it really opened the door to me considering going to the 135 operation. So down there in the Caribbean, like you mentioned, I flew the Pilatus PC-12 in and out of San Juan, but we mostly went to St. Bart's, which is really nice, fun, short runway, and perfect to kind of get to know the Pilatus and just realize how
short field capability.
Exactly. So and then you know, you land at 80 knots going into St. Bart's, and then you can bring it into Boston Logan going you know, 150 knots. So it's really a versatile airplane. So yeah, from that point on, I had a really good time in the 135 world. I enjoyed serving the customers and being more hands-on and getting to do a little bit more of the flight planning than you would at the airlines. And I think it really gave me some good experience for when I did jump to the airlines to SkyWest. It kind of helped me open my mind more to the big picture, rather than just, you know, flying the route that you're filed, that the dispatcher gives you and all that. This kind of gave me a more holistic understanding of what goes into the operation. So yeah, as you mentioned, I went to SkyWest, was on the CRJ based out of LAX for my time there, and flew in and out of Aspen for a good majority of my time. And that was extremely rewarding opportunity. Very tricky flying sometimes, especially in the winter months with the snow, and then the summer months with the thunderstorm. So there's always something going on. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. But when the opportunity to go to Spirit came up, I jumped at it, because I really my end goal was always to to go to Delta Airlines, and I figured that would be a good step in that direction. I started Spirit on the 320. They fly the 319, 320, and 321. So I flew those all around the U.S. as well as down to Peru a few times, up and down Central and South America. So that was a good opportunity to get some international experience. And I was very honored to have been invited to interview at Delta Airlines back in September. And I started there in November, finished training in January on the Airbus 220, and I've been qualified on that since.
Wow, that's you've done quite a bit since graduation. I want to come back to you and ask you a couple other questions, but let's move on to a couple of the other recipients. So Anna Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Hi. So you, as we mentioned, graduated in 2017. You also are currently flying. You're flying with SkyWest. Sorry about that. Which you have been for the last 2.5 years. And you're flying their entire fleet of CRJs across the board.
That's correct.
And you in particular also pointed out that the Presidential Scholarship from the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation and CJP was a very positive experience for you in reference to your getting exposed to things like AirVenture, Oshkosh, et cetera, and so forth. But before we talk about that, how did you get into flying?
It was sort of a combination of several different things. It started when I was very young. I always say it's just a phase I never grew out of. When I was really young, my grandpa wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force. He was a weatherman with them, and he would take me to air shows and tell me stories about all of his experiences flying. And it really inspired me that it was a possibility to be a career. And just like Jan, when I would travel when I was younger, I would look forward to the flights almost as much as I did to the vacations. So when I learned that it could actually be a real thing, that I could make money and get to do what I was passionate about every single day, I just set my sights on that and never looked back.
So now that you're doing that and you're making progress in your career, where do you see yourself going?
Hopefully flying every day for the rest of my life. I've really loved
could you be more specific?
I would like to go on to the mainline airlines eventually, but I'm really enjoying where I'm at, and the experience I had as a flight instructor, even every aspect of flight training up till now has been very rewarding and offers different opportunities that not every single aspect of aviation does. It's fascinating how many different ways you can experience aviation in this world. And I'm really glad that I'm where I am, and hopefully it'll help me get to mainline one day, whichever one works out to be the best for my situation, hopefully.
So since you're out there, can you give us a feel how COVID-19 has affected you guys, currently with the downturn of flying and that type of thing?
Yeah, it's been a very unique experience. I've never seen airports so empty. It went from your normal hustle and bustle in an airport and planes, packed flights everywhere you go, and all of a sudden, over the course of about a month, I saw my passenger loads go from booked full to maybe carrying 3 people at a time. And since then, there's been a lot of voluntary leave programs put in place to hopefully prevent furloughs and other down the road consequences from it. But it's recently started to come back, and I really hope that we start seeing more of an increase in it. But it's also kind of opened up my eyes to the different aspects of aviation, like the cargo side and the corporate side. They've really flourished during some of this time compared to the airlines. Exactly. So it's actually kind of fascinating to see how the industry fluctuates with the current events of even a pandemic.
That's a big thing for me. I won't digress too much into it, but that I think the natural progression is most people think airlines when they come out of school and when they think about their career, if they're not doing military. And And I just think, and I don't think, I know that there are other opportunities. I'm a little biased with regard to business aviation, especially since I've spent the last 8 years in it. But I do think it's another great opportunity in the industry. You mentioned cargo. That's a really cool one. Especially you don't want to be bothered with anybody, and it's just you and your crew flying. So there are a lot of opportunities. I'm glad that you brought that up. Cheryl, you want to talk with Otto and bring a little background about him?
Absolutely. And could I just ask Anna another question?
Sure, sure.
I just would like to see if you can expound on your experience with CJP. You had an experience at AirVenture. You had an experience at the convention, I believe it was New Orleans.
Yes.
Just give us a little bit about how those experiences helped you. Were they exciting? How many firsts did you have on those experiences? Because I know you come back to AirVenture every year now.
Oh my goodness, it's been incredible. The entire package of the scholarship is at its core, yes, the scholarship itself, but like Jan was saying, the experiences with it are so much more than that. And I didn't come from an aviation background, aside from my grandpa having been in the Air Force. I'd never been to Oshkosh. I'd never been to these conferences, met people of so many different backgrounds and opportunities. I got to ride with Tracy up in his M2 to pick up a antique propeller one day. That was phenomenal. AirVenture itself was an incredible week where we were able to go up with the T6 Texan team. We were able to talk with Bob Hoover more and really experience the whole week to its fullest potential. And it has inspired me so much to go back every year and stay in contact with as many as I can and really just see all of the different things that there are to offer out there. It's been really, really incredible.
Team crew experience too, didn't you?
What was that?
Did you meet with the Apollo 13 crew?
Yes, we met with the Apollo 13 crew. We got to go on a float plane ride up to the seaplane base with you guys. We did the helicopter tour while the air show was going on, which was an amazing view. It was really, really incredible.
Thank you.
Just so many things.
There's so many things, it's hard to even keep track and remember all of the opportunities we've had.
I know. Even just the first experience that I had with the presentation dinner of the scholarship when Bob came and sat down and talked with us like one-on-one with the scholarship recipients for what felt like hours. It was incredible to be able to even experience that. I'm so grateful.
Before I turn it over to Otto, I'm coming right to you, but I just wanted to add a few numbers to these scholarships. So we've already established that Jan was our first scholarship recipient and he set the bar. So when the committee met the next year, obviously we had a standard now that we were looking for, and each and every one of these students has lived up to that standard. They are incredible ambassadors for CJP. They're incredible ambassadors for the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, and they are incredible ambassadors from ERAU. And ERAU is also as proud of these students as we are, and I work very closely with ERAU on with each and every one of you. I'm working with ERAU also in the background on. So know that they're as proud of you as we are. So since the scholarship program has come about, CJP has awarded 10 $25,000 scholarships. Bob Hoover Presidential Scholarship name. Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation has awarded 10 $25,000 scholarships. The name of the Bob Hoover Presidential Scholarship Program. CJP has added an additional 14 flight training scholarships from $2,000 up to $20,000 beyond the $25,000 scholarships for a grand total of $632,370.
Wow.
Well, that's a big number in a short period of time that we have grown this program, and you should all be proud. The committee should all be proud. But as far as ERAU is concerned, we are we are their top donor as far as scholarships, and they have never in the history of ERAU seen a program that supports students the way we support you. So in other words, the networking, the mentoring, all those things. And we repeatedly hear that from ERAU. So you are very proud ambassadors of ERAU. All right, so let's jump to Otto. Otto, I'm sorry, I didn't want to step on your time.
No worries.
Let's talk a little bit about you. And I know you have a very interesting background as well. So tell us your passion for aviation, tell us where it comes from, and let us hear your story.
All right. So I've known from as long as I can remember that I wanted to be a pilot. My dad was a pilot, and also my grandfather. He flew in the Air Force. So I had him to look up to as well as my dad. You know, being in my family, I had those two close mentors that were pilots. And my dad had his own private airplane that I would go fly with him. So that was amazing experience as a kid, be able to sit up in the front seat often at a young age. So that was always what I wanted to do. I looked up to them, and that was my goal.
What kind of aircraft?
At the time, he had a Helio Courier, which is a
wow.
single engine aircraft. Yeah,
Neat.
very fun.
What's your favorite aircraft to fly, Otto?
The favorite one I've flown has got to be the Super Cub, which I got my private license in. Just simple and easy and smooth, just really fun.
And what would you like to fly one day?
Probably the Helio Stallion, which is similar to the Courier, but it's turboprop, bigger and faster. Someday I'd like to fly one of those.
So with what you have done so far with your aviation education, and you're a senior now, so you're one more year and you'll be completing it along with all the requirements. What is your goal in aviation?
My goal initially is to fly corporate on the business side. And then after a while, maybe possibly move into cargo.
I'm sorry, I'm a
but
little biased.
just kind of see where it takes me, but corporate is what I want to do first.
Okay. Do you have any particular type of corporate flying you want to do? Do you want to do it for a large corporation, a small company, or have you even thought about that yet?
Not too much thought, but I think a smaller company would be nice because you get more of a interaction with the client and the people that you're working with. You build a better relationship than as opposed to an airline, I think.
Well, that's true. I think one of the things that I like to point out about flying for business or flying corporate is coming out of school. If you go to a small flight operation, you also have a better chance of getting in that operation and starting to gain some flight experience and move up versus going to a larger corporate flight department that the requirements are pretty significant, along with their own insurance things and things like that. So, but I advocate for corporate flying as well as airline flying. I think they're both great careers.
So Otto, you are a 2-year back-to-back recipient. Last year, 2019 was your first year. You're now 2020. Unfortunately, 2020 has kind of squelched our activities a little bit, but you were able to have an experience at AirVenture last year with CJP. So tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about how these back-to-back scholarship years are helping you for your future plan.
Right. So I had been to AirVenture once when I was younger, but it had been a long time. So last year with CJP, they brought me out to AirVenture for 2019, and that was hands down the best experience that I could ever get at Oshkosh. It was amazing, from all the activities that we did, from the helicopter to flying in the T6 Texan team, flying formation, and then all of the networking, countless numbers of people that I got to meet. That was just amazing experience. And then from 2019, first year, that was just amazing to get the scholarship once, let alone twice for 2020. I didn't expect to get it 2 years in a row, and it's been a phenomenal help, and it's allowed me to continue my training and to graduate early, semester early this year. So it'll be amazing.
So not to overstate about COVID-19, but you were right in the middle of your semester when the pandemic hit. How did that affect you and others, and particularly at Embry-Riddle?
Yeah, so at the Prescott campus, the flight line remained open initially for a while after we had to move off of campus, those of us living on campus. And then we had a confirmed case at our flight line. So they ended up
Oh,
closing
wow.
the flight line for a little over a month. So it delayed my commercial single engine training a little bit, but we're back open, and I'm got one more check ride left, and I'll be done with that.
All right. So when you're going to take that check ride, do you know yet?
Should be next week, and then I'll be done with the single engine. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Good luck with that. That's great.
Thank you.
And
Ready for multi.
fingers crossed.
Yep.
So next we'd like to talk with Brooke. Brooke, welcome again, and congratulations on both you completing your studies in aeronautical science at Embry-Riddle, but also, and you and I had a little bit of a conversation about it over the phone, you are now working on your master's in business administration through the Embry-Riddle Worldwide University. Tell us about that.
Well, thank you again for having me. So I recently just finished my degree program with Embry-Riddle Daytona. I finished my commercial multi this year, which I started in January, got that done about March. So that was really exciting and a lot of fun. And I was finally flying a faster plane than a Cessna. So that was a really fun experience. But I did finish that. I've started my master's in business administration. And I'm really looking more into with this whole coronavirus and how it's really affected aviation. I've really started looking more into the business aviation portion of things. And I do have some experience with that from joining the BASA Association at school and certain business aviation classes they suggest you take at Riddle. So I actually attended one of the NBAA conferences last year in Fort Lauderdale, which opened up my eyes to just how big corporate aviation is, because it's not really something that's talked about too much. Normally your goal is you come to Embry-Riddle, you get your certificates, you CFI, you go to the airlines, and you hear so many success stories that way, but there are a lot of different ways to get to the airline. So.
Well, that's great. And when you went to that regional forum for MBAA, you were mentioning that you were out on static display, and the demo pilots were really nice about talking to you about what they did and about the aircraft.
Yeah, they were so nice and so helpful. And I was there with a group of students as well. And we were able to come in and tour the different planes, sit in the cockpit. I saw some of the most advanced avionics I've ever seen in my life. And I will probably not see them anytime soon. But it was really an amazing opportunity to get to meet those men and women that were flying. And they explained the difference in the worlds. And while it is all under aviation, it is very different flying, and it's a very different part of aviation.
So I have to ask you what I've asked others. How did you get started, and then how did you pick Embry-Riddle as your school of choice to study aviation?
So I'm from South Florida. So I finished up high school, and I really did not know what I wanted to do with my career. I started taking classes at a local community college down there and just trying to, get my prerequisites out of the way and see if there was anything I came across that I took a liking to. And I remember seeing some information about becoming a flight attendant. And I brought this information to my father, and he just kind of looked at me a little sideways, and I was like, well, have you considered that you could maybe fly the plane? Like, do you have to be the flight attendant? And I'm so thankful, so thankful to have a father who really, sees that I was definitely capable of a lot more than I gave myself credit at that point. So I went to Opelok Airport and took my first demo flight out of Wayman Aviation. And
what aircraft did you do the demo in?
It was a Cessna 172, and they
Okay.
put me in the left seat. So I was kind of PIC in a way. Couldn't log in, of course.
On your demo flight, right?
Yeah. So we went up, and it was just a couple minutes after being in the air. And I remember the feeling of just looking down at everything, and everything seemed so small. Your problems just completely faded away. And the control of being able to fly your aircraft yourself. I always liked flying when I was younger, but I never really understood just how amazing it could feel to have that freedom in the air. There's, no traffic, no bumper to bumper. Sometimes you'll have a little ATC congestion here and there, but there really is nothing like, being 6,000 feet in the air and just looking down at the scenery and the things around you. And it's just phenomenal. It's probably one of the best
So
office views in the world.
you can tell you're hooked. You know, what I really like about your story is usually there's something that sparks you earlier in life that you want to fly, but you didn't know what you wanted to do after you graduated from high school and were even in junior college, you know, figuring, I just used an old term, but forgive me.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Well, they
Hey,
were
I'm
community
telling my
college.
age.
Now they're
But no, and then, you know, you started looking at this opportunity and your dad kind of guided you, and now look at you, you know. So where do you want to go with this after you finished with your education?
So that's kind of the $1 million question right now.
Okay.
I am working on my CFI. So hopefully that'll be done in the next couple months. But if we look around what's happening in aviation, most flight schools are not hiring flight instructors at the moment.
Right.
So it seems to be maybe not taking a completely different path, but just kind of pivoting into trying to explore the world of business and corporate aviation. So currently right now I'm looking for some sort of entry-level position and maybe a smaller company that would give me a better understanding of how these different flight departments work. And I have a pretty good understanding of how flight operations works as far as flight training, being that I did work at Embry-Riddle as a student assistant in their flight operations building. But I'd like to see the behind the scenes of some other parts in the industry, and just kind of expand my horizons from there and see what opportunities present themselves.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and move to Brandon so we can, because I don't want us to run out of time to address a couple of the other things in the industry. Brandon, how are you?
Doing very well, sir. How are you?
Good, thank you. So Brandon, you're also a recent graduate. And you, as we mentioned earlier, you finished your multi-engine training in February in the DA-42, the Diamond. And you started working on your CFI. And so you're similar to Brooke in terms of where you are with your flight training and your career goals. Can you tell us a little bit about that and tell us how you got interested in flying?
Yes, sir. So interested in flying came at a young age, just like many of us. My memory that really got it hooked was my grandfather worked at the San Antonio International Airport, and he had really tall windows in his office. And I remember being a kid, 5, 6 years old, and looking out there watching the big silver American airline planes land, and we got to see the perfect view of the runway, and it was beautiful. So since then on, I've always been extremely excited about being a pilot, and never really thought I had the resources to make it happen though. But getting to know you all, it's been great, and the dream is slowly coming true. So
how did you pick Embry-Riddle as your school of choice?
I looked around at other schools, and Embry-Riddle seemed to have the reputation for being the best one. You know, they go by the Harvard of the skies, and I thought it to be pretty true. I don't have much else to compare it to, but I thought it was an incredibly unique university, and definitely top of the line facilities. Everything there is very state of the art, and it's a great school.
So besides getting your CFI, what are your plans for your career at this point? What do you think you want to do?
So my sights are set solely on the CFI goal, because one step at a time. But the goal is to try to move through CFI, regional, and then get to a bigger airline, specifically American Airlines, to fulfill that dream from a long time ago. And then that's where my sights are set.
Cheryl, did you have it?
Are you still working your vision board?
The vision board.
You had it up in your...
Oh yes, but it changed to the Diamond. Now I have in my laundry room, instead of the Cessna pinned up on the wall, with the dryer running for the noise, it was a Diamond for a while. So I make it as realistic as possible in there with the chair flying. Actually now I spend a lot of time back on the Cessna. I need to buy another one, because as an instructor, trying to learn all the how to teach it now basically, and get to the right seat, which has been an interesting experience.
So let's move to a group discussion with everybody now that everybody has had a chance to talk a little bit about their individual careers. And I'll hand it off to you, Tracy. Tracy has tremendous experience in the industry and aviation and all aspects of it. You guys were talking about it in reference to the EAA Air Venture. Tracy's been intricately involved in that. Bob Hoover Foundation, Citation Jet Pilots, he's one of the founders of. and the list goes on, plus all the flying he's done, and all the neat airplanes he has in his hangar. But Tracy, do you want to share some of your perspective on what's going on in the industry right now, and what kind of future you see for these young professionals we're talking to?
You know, Vince, if I had an idea what was going to happen, I would buy stock in the airlines or know what to buy or what to sell. But I think everything's going to return to normal, but it's going to be time. The bodies have to heal. The mind has to forget. We have to have a vaccine. People are still going to travel. They're still going to fly. They're still going to take vacations. They're going to stop all this teleconferencing, and things will return to normal. It's just going to take time. We just have to be persistent. We have to be patient. We have to stay after it. We've got to keep in the game and just stay after things. But I think this is a great opportunity, you know, to educate our audience in what the foundation's been doing. Between, you know, the foundation, through our members' support, the great support of the Citation Jet Pilots Association and other individuals, we've been able to raise well over $600,000 for educational activities. You know, we want to take that to $1 million here shortly. And I think with, you know, the great board members and attendees and participants we've got with the foundation, we're going to be able to do that in the next few years to find outstanding students like this and continue to do it. I want people like Lynn and Michelle and other people on the call today, George, to get to know how these dollars are being used and the benefit that the students are getting out of these dollars that we're spending. You know, unfortunately, I don't think you're a group of people that just going out on Friday night partying and blowing your money. I think this is a hardworking group that we're very proud of. And we want to thank you for making us proud of you, for showing us our dollars are being well spent by the success all of you have achieved in your lives and continue to achieve.
Thanks, Tracy. Cheryl, you've seen a lot with the Citation Jet Pilots Association, your involvement. You have some perspective on what you're seeing these days?
I agree totally with what Tracy's saying. It's going to take time. Not only is it going to take time for aviation to come back, it's going to take time for all the aviation associations that normally do scholarships and training and flight training opportunities for folks. It's going to take them time to come back too. And typically that's a minimum of a 2-year cycle. If this COVID continues the way, sadly, it's projected to be throughout the year and possibly into next year, it could take longer, but it will come back. There's no question it will come back. Our society dictates that it has to come back and that we have to get back to the norm in business. And then after that, I really feel like we're going to see all those new businesses popping up again the way they have. You know, the younger generation are entrepreneurs. They want to open their own businesses. So we're going to see that happen. With the scholarship program, it needs to continue. We've got a hiccup in the road, and perhaps I'm not able to offer this year's scholars all the same opportunities, but there is next year and the year after and the year after that, and we have a lot to bring. And you as scholars have a lot to bring to us as well, because this has been a learning opportunity for us. I mean, you go through a vetting process, you go through a criteria, you go through an application process. This is no, you know, we don't just sit down at a table and say this person, and that person. There's actually a process that goes into this.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of hard work on behalf of the committee in order to make that happen. So I first have to thank the committee and the committee that has been, a portion of the committee that's been appointed to actually go through that process, which is Tracy and Chick and I at this time. So we see you, we know who you are. We're thrilled when you come into the room because we already have an idea of the student we're looking at. For all those listening, they have minimum standards, grade point standards to meet. They have to have letters of reference from professors, and some of those come throughout the year as well. They have grade reporting that comes to me every grade period close. So all these things line up, and that helps tell the story of what great scholars these students are. And we're just very proud to have each and every one of you. You are truly, as I said before, ambassadors for all organizations, including ERE.
Yeah. I agree with both of you and Tracy. And we do have a goal of at least getting to $1 million for these scholarships to support these young professionals and these students in terms of their aviation career. So we're working very diligently towards that. We'll be introducing other initiatives as we make progress, and we'll be expanding the Presidential Scholarship Initiative as well. My 2 cents is that, as Tracy said, the industry will come back. I think prior to the industry hitting a roadblock in terms called the pandemic, there is a great need for pilots, mechanics, avionics techs, engineers, et cetera. And I don't think that that's changed. I think that it's been slowed down. But I think once the industry is back up to speed, and as it starts to get back up to speed, all of those opportunities are going to be there. And, you know, again, we talked about it a little earlier. One of the great things about the aviation industry is, yes, being a pilot is awesome, but there are so many other opportunities in the industry that are noteworthy as well, and that type of thing. So totally agree that it's going to come back around. Of course, when you're in the middle of it, like you guys are trying to complete your CFI, et cetera, and so forth, and get back into your training, it's kind of tough. Or if you're potentially being furloughed in your current flying situation. So I know these are tough times, but you guys have the resilience, and I'm sure that you'll not only manage it, but you'll bust through and go to new heights. So, pun intended.
Vince, I've got a question for Cheryl. Cheryl,
sure.
What would you say? You know, we've got 5 students with us today, but between full scholarships, flight training scholarships, continuing education, what would you say the number of people through the Hoover Foundation with CJP's help and our donors' help we have touched? Is it 20, 25 students, would you say?
34.
34.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've been able to touch and enhance, Bob would be proud of us. We've been able to touch and enhance the lives of 34 people in the last 8 years. And we want to expand that number and keep doing this.
Absolutely.
That's a good number to remember.
It's a great number. It's also a great number to build off of.
Yes.
Yes.
And Vince, just one more comment about the future of aviation and kind of the return of the job market and such. Is my worst fear is that, as you mentioned, there is still a need for people to continue on their paths into aviation. But my worst fear is that once we start coming out of this, that the market of folks that aviation needs will not be there because of these downturns and because maybe they've moved on to other places. So there's really, aviation has got to keep stimulating the youth, and we have to keep stimulating folks to be interested.
I agree. Yeah. And some of the programs in the scholarship program is exactly one of the ways to do that. So and as part of this discussion, and any of you can chime in, any of the 5 of you recipients, scholarship recipients can chime in. With what you have done with school and a couple of you already in your careers in aviation, what advice would you give to someone in middle school or in high school that is expressing an interest in aviation now, but you know they're looking ahead already to what they think they may want to do? What advice would any of you give them?
Well, I'll jump in. I spend a lot of my free time volunteering on the leadership team of an organization called Professional Pilots of Tomorrow. And it's a pilot mentoring organization. So we mentor anyone who's interested in aviation and help them figure out the best path to reach their career goals by pairing them up with a one-on-one mentor who's a current pilot in the industry. So through that organization, I've had the opportunity to mentor quite a few students, just like you described, you know, middle schoolers, high schoolers. We take people from all ages who are just interested in getting into aviation. So what I always say to students who are, you know, in middle school and high school, it's really never too early to start. The sooner you start flying is probably the sooner you're going to realize how much you love it. And that way you can kind of reconfigure your goals to make that happen. But there's no time like now to start start flying and start seeing how much you enjoy it. So that's always my goal. My best advice is to just give it a try and see how you like it, and keep moving on from there.
Great advice. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with Jan. And, as we've spoken about now, it doesn't seem like aviation is going anywhere but up from here. What we can do and continue to do is just continue mentoring, everybody, and especially women in aviation that tend to be a much smaller number. I would recommend, don't be intimidated. It's not a boys only club. Or anything along those lines. We need more women in aviation. And, the sky is really the limit with that. By the time students who are in their middle school and high school periods right now are finished with their flight training, aviation is going to be where it was just a couple months ago. So I would absolutely recommend to get involved.
Anna, how about your perspective on the women in aviation aspect of things, being a woman in aviation?
I would say that it is very true that the population of females in the industry is rather low comparison, but I also know that there is a fantastic support system in place. There are a lot of communities that you can get involved in, and even just on a personal basis, I know several women who are in flight training and are looking up to those that have gone before them. And I know I did the very same thing. And I think that's a very important thing when you're beginning, is find yourself a support group, find yourself something to get involved in, do your research and really find your positive mentors, because there's going to be some bad days in aviation, but if you find those people that really keep you going and remember the positive experiences that you've had, it really keeps you going on any single day.
Yeah. Brandon, Otto, did you guys have
Yeah, something pretty simple really is just try to, when you have a passion for it and you love it, try to have fun once you're doing it in the training, because a lot of the times along the way, at Riddle, I have fellow peers and students, and sometimes you can get a little stressed about deadlines and modules and where you're at in your flight training, and you forget about all the things that you loved about it in the first place. So you just kind of remember what motivated you to want to get there and continue to push through it. It's not always maybe the most fun right away. Like Bob Hoover, I learned he used to always get real sick when he was flying, and he just knew it's what he wanted to do. So he continued to push through it anyways. And I had a little bit of anxiety with, certain things, but gosh, once I learned and now I'm where I'm at, I love flying, and I'm so glad that you got to stick with it. So.
Great point. Absolutely great point. Otto?
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with Brandon, just making sure to keep it fun. You can go at your own pace. And what I'd recommend for the younger generation is to start early, but not necessarily the flight training part, but more of the networking and building those relationships with other people in the industry to spread your reach and learn more and as much as you can about the industry, not just getting all the ratings.
Wow, you guys, you're inspiring. Listen, before we wrap things up there, I want to say a couple of things, and then I have one more fun question to ask you guys. One of the things that, and just through my years of experience in both my journalism experience and then in aviation, is, I had a conversation with one of you already on the phone about it. Always say yes. And what I mean by that is always make yourself available, particularly in the early stages of your career. And I recommend this to anybody in the beginning of their career. When somebody asks you if you can do an assignment, you say yes. And the reason that's important is because if you become the go-to for your supervisor, boss, or whoever's in charge, then they think of you also at the good times when they're promoting somebody and there's because a position is open, or when there's a kind of a neat flight that they have and they say, oh, I'm going to pick so-and-so to do that because I know every time I call them, and whether I'm calling them at 11 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, their answer is yes. Where do you want me to be and when? And I highly recommend that. I'm not trying to point you out, Anna, but I know Anna and I had a conversation about it, and Anna said, I've been doing it, and wow, you're right. So
it works.
It works. It really does. It puts you it puts you first of mind with whoever you're working for, and that's what you want to be. It applies really in any industry, but specifically in aviation, that's what you want to be. You want to be first of mind when somebody is thinking of something they need, particularly when they're in a crunch and they need some help on something. The person that says kinda, maybe, I'm not sure, or no, then they go to the bottom of the list when it comes time for a promotion or something good. So just a piece of advice there, if you guys weren't already aware of it. The final question I have before we wrap up with some final statements from Tracy, Cheryl, and myself. Anybody looking at the space industry? Because space exploration is back on the forefront. It was a big deal back in the late 60s and early 70s. So I'm telling on myself because I was very much into it. And now it's kind of picked up its momentum again. It's back at the forefront, and it's a path that a lot are considering. Are any of you, or have any of you looked at that, have that on your radar, had any thoughts about it? In other words, does anybody want to go to the moon or to Mars?
Well,
I think the moon.
I'll speak briefly. I unfortunately just got notice that I'm getting furloughed from Delta, so I'm looking at all opportunities. And in that job search, I actually did come across a posting for Virgin Galactic. They're hiring some pilots. Suffice it to say, I didn't meet the minimum requirements as far as test pilot school and things like that. But I'm still eager to maybe find another opportunity. If anyone out there needs a pilot. No,
Sorry to hear about the furlough.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. But no, absolutely. I think space is a very exciting opportunity, and definitely something I'm keeping open on the table.
Great. Brooke, you were trying to jump in there.
I mean, yeah, I think we had the conversation a little earlier, if the opportunity to go to the moon presented itself, that would be kind of interesting. I don't know about Mars. I don't think they'd send us back from there, at least not for a while. But I think that it would be, a little naive to not consider all the space exploration and everything that's going on in that world as we continue to grow in aviation. So, from doing the little things like making a LinkedIn to, trying to, like Jan, do a little bit more research on these different companies and see what they have to offer. While we may not be spacemen, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. And I'm really excited about it.
Cool. Anna, Brandon, Jan?
Yeah, well, I think my passion for flying as a pilot probably tops out around 42,000 feet with Tracy in the CJ3 Plus. I don't think I have any passion to pilot beyond those heights, but if it ever gets commercialized, I could see myself emptying out all my bank account if it ever happened to try to get there and say I was on the moon once in my life.
Anna, Jan?
I guess you never know the future, but I know it was really up and coming when I was going to Riddle, the programs that they had in place. So who knows what, like Brooke said, what opportunities might present themselves. I do enjoy flying the planes right now, though, not the rocket.
I said Jan, I meant Otto. Otto?
Yeah, I think I would also prefer to stick with the fixed wing aspect, but it is really cool to see that the space exploration has jump-started, and it'll be interesting to see where that industry goes now.
Great. Well, it's great. Cheryl, do you have any closing words?
Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you. Your support's been amazing. Getting to know you all over the years has been absolutely amazing. You've put up with me. That's absolutely amazing. And it's been a pure joy.
Tracy?
I just want to thank everyone and articulate everyone's help in articulating what Bob asked us to do, that we're able to do it and able to further his legacy. These are the things Bob asked us to do, and we'd like to show the world and show other people that we're doing them, and take pride in the fact that we are doing these things to benefit aviation, benefit the next generation, and benefit the aviators as Bob has asked us to do. So thanks to everyone for being a help in doing that.
You're here.
Thank you, Tracy and Cheryl. Not to patronize you guys, but you guys are an impressive group of young professionals in aviation. It was great to have you on the show today and to hear your perspectives and your candor about what's going on in the industry, what it means to you, what your future is, et cetera, and so forth. So thank all of you. And we wish you absolutely the best in your careers. And of course, you know, we're here. So if you need Tracy, Cheryl, or myself for anything, don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
With
Great.
that, everybody can go back to school or back to work. Back to flying.
Actually,
Thank
it's
you.
time for 4th of July weekend. So anyhow, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the program and that you got something out of it that you could, you know, either take in for yourself or pass along. And again, we are looking for the kind of support that will help us grow this and other initiatives for the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, as well as the Citation Jet Pilots Association. So thank you again. Everybody have a good holiday weekend. Be safe, stay healthy. Thanks.
Be well, everybody.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the invite. See you guys.